Welcome to the Hidden Orchard podcast, a radical exploration of spirituality, science, and the Bible from a Jewish perspective. Each week we'll look at a new topic and dive deep into the texts that inspire and enrich our lives. So whether you're a seasoned expert or just curious about a topic, there's something for everyone. So sit back, relax, and we'll get to today's episode in a bit. But first, if you haven't done so, visit thehiddenorchard.com and subscribe. It's free, and you'll receive access to content and weekly emails. There you can also subscribe for a paid membership and get access to everything on the site and be the first to hear about online study opportunities where you can meet and interact with other people on the journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you have an idea for a topic, reach out to me at thehiddenorchard.com. Now, let's get to today's episode. For nearly 2,000 years, the world has viewed Jewish tradition, especially the rabbis of the Apostolic era, through a distorted lens. This distortion is derived from various disputes in the New Testament, particularly the Gospels, but the picture is not complete. There's an epilogue that many have missed, and it's time to recover the full story. To begin, it's important to recognize that the events of the New Testament occurred within quite possibly the most volatile and divisive moment in Jewish history. Sectarianism reigned, opposing schools of Pharisees couldn't see eye to eye, and Sadducean corruption and violent zealots were just a few of the obstacles to unity. Meanwhile, the Roman occupation strained every other aspect of religious, social, and economic life. But what's often missed is that these divisions did not define Judaism going forward. In fact, many of the issues Jesus critiqued in his opponents were also called out by other rabbis of his time, and ultimately corrected in the next generation. See, in the aftermath of the destruction of the Second Temple, around 70 CE, the surviving sages reorganized the people around unity and mercy, leaving factionalism and harsh strictness behind. Many of the villains in the Gospels simply did not survive the destruction of the Jewish-Roman War. Most of the survivors banded together and began building a new path for the people, a path forward. Though the Talmud records a few times some reverted back to their former patterns, they would find themselves chastised, corrected, or, unfortunately in the case of Rabbi Eliezer, excommunicated. In a sort of rabbinic retroactive, the remnant of the Jewish leadership essentially discussed the causal factors of their calamity. They determined it was, among other things, internal strife, baseless hatred, lack of compassion, and just a general disunity. These are similar claims Jesus had for the leaders in his day. Terms like Pharisees, rabbinic literature, or even the rabbis can often trigger negative feelings in Western Bible readers. This is commonly the case for the readers who approach the New Testament with little or no knowledge of first-century Judaism, nor the Judaism that emerged afterwards. The result is a flattened and inaccurate view where Jesus appears to be an apostate, anti-Torah, and rabbinic Judaism is cast as hypocritical, harsh, and oppositional to the gospel message. This is a bad combination when these views are overlaid onto modern Judaism, as if they're the same. And of course, history has shown this has contributed to not just theological errors, but replacement theology, anti-Semitism, violence, and worse. This misconception overlooks a critical truth that Jesus, Paul, and the apostles were actually engaged in the deeply nuanced legal and spiritual debates of their time. They understood the framework, they built upon it, and operated within it, not around it. If you check the show notes, follow the link back to thehiddenorchard.com for this article, and I have a number of samples copied into the page with their sources that stack up Talmudic or Mishnaic phrases with the Gospels, and you can see they're one-to-one. Anyhow, after the Babylonian exile, Jewish life changed dramatically. With most Jews living outside of Israel, successive empires ruled the land, pagan empires, which of course created challenges for everyday Torah observance. By the time of Jesus' arrival, Jewish society was fragmented. The Talmud records nearly 24 groups existed in Israel alone. Their arguments weren't just for sport. These reflected the everyday struggles and knowledge gaps Jews needed to fill to survive and stay faithful to God, and to fend off the ever-pervasive Hellenistic influences. Matters of purity and impurity often dominated many disputes. To help, the Pharisees would wade into the mire of these discussions to seek resolution. Their goal was to help everyday people understand, for example, the permissibility of using foreign currency with nudity or idolatrous images on it, or which types of vegetables and plants needed to be tithed and which didn't, all of which are biblical commandments. Most readers are unaware of this context because the gospel writers didn't feel the need to include it. They assumed the context was evident because in their time it was. The original audience were Jews, and likely familiar with the nature and the content of these daily halakhic legal discussions. Building on top of these, the apostolic authors pointed to deeper theological insights on the foundation of Jewish law. In my opinion, this is missed in the various healings on Shabbat captured in the Gospels. And of course, we've unpacked this in an episode and an article all its own, but a crash course in Jewish law reveals the Pharisees indeed allow many types of healing already. So understanding this, we see a deeper message emerge through the Gospel's inclusion of this debate. Okay, so fast forward to the years after 70 CE. In the wake of Israel's near annihilation at the hands of the Romans, the surviving rabbis were able to establish a new place of learning in Yavne, located near modern-day Tel Aviv. Here, long discussions led to the eventual reestablishment of the school of Hillel over the predominant school of Shammai that led up to that point. The Talmud asked why the school of Hillel was given prominence in this new era. Why the shift? The answer: they were agreeable and forbearing. They showed restraint when affronted, and when they taught Jewish law, they would teach both their own statements and opinions and the statements and opinions of the school of Shammai. Moreover, when they formulated their teachings and cited a dispute, they prioritized the statements of the school of Shammai to their own. In essence, the school of Hillel embodied the ethics necessary to prevent sectarianism and disunity from ever taking root again. In general, they were kinder, compassionate, more balanced. And from this shift, we begin to see striking parallels emerge in the new era of Judaism and the teachings of Jesus. Again, if you want to see these samples, I have many of them listed. Follow the show notes back to thehiddenorchard.com and find this article. So in conclusion, if you're interested in hearing more on this idea, unpacked a little bit further, you can watch a 2-part series we have on the YouTube channel called Misreading the Rabbis. We'll come to find that understanding rabbinic thought doesn't diminish Jesus' message. It actually shows him as engaging in the halakhic and ethical concerns of his time, even adding spiritual insight to illuminate them further. So it's time to right historical wrongs. By returning to the lost context of the New Testament, we rediscover not only missing nuance behind the teachings of Jesus, but we can correct the misunderstood tradition that actually shaped him. The Jewish sages were not his enemies, they were his peers. To this day, their words echo his, and his, theirs. That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this topic. Remember, you can find more information at thehiddenorchard.com. If you liked what you heard, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. We don't really engage in marketing, so it's word of mouth and references like that really help spread the word. Also, I want to say thank you to those who subscribe to the site and those who support the Hidden Orchard Project financially. Without you, it wouldn't be possible, so thank you. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.